Coming up on This Week in Radio Tech, our guest is Marc Haycook. He's a voiceover actor, voiceover artist. He does some radio voice work too, and he's got a beautiful new studio in his home that he's built, and it's really unusual. He can't call it a studio. He can't call it a room. He has to call it a piece of furniture, and we'll tell you why in a few minutes. Plus, we'll have our first phone call ever that we've taken on the show coming up next on TWiRT.
This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you by Broadcasters General Store with outstanding service, savings, and support. Online at bgs.cc. By Broadcast Bionics with the Bionics Studio, including talk show control, social media, and visual radio. Broadcast Bionics brings exceptional audience engagement to radio and TV. By Angry Audio. Audio problems disappear when you get angry at angryaudio.com. By Nutel, worry-free transmission you can count on with outstanding control, reliability, efficiencies, and Nutel's unmatched 24/7 customer support. Online at Nutel.com. And by Max Connect Wireless, prioritized high-speed internet service designed for transmitter sites and remote broadcasts.
Hello, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech, the show where we talk about everything from the microphone to that light bulb at the top of the tower. This week, we're going to spend a little bit more time on the microphone end of things, the studio end of things. I'm Kirk Harnack. I'm your host. I am here in the Telos Alliance studio in Nashville, Tennessee, also known as my office. So welcome in. Glad you're here. It is a beautiful summer day here in Nashville. Got to have lunch out on the deck today. A little bit warm, but we were under the umbrella shade, so it was okie dokie. So it's gorgeous here. It's beautiful across a lot of the country. Summertime, the time when we get a lot of outdoor things done, but some people are working indoors. And so I want to bring in my guest and introduce him to you. Marc Haycook is my guest. Marc, welcome in. It's great to see you.
Thank you, sir. It is a pleasure to be on the show, especially episode number 700.
No pressure, but we're going to make this a super good show.
Yes.
So, Marc, you've been through several careers in your life, as many of us folks have been, and we're here to talk mostly about the career and the studio facility that you have now. Give us a little taste, a little preview, wet our whistle for what we're going to be talking about for the next hour.
Well, my studio could be a commercial for the Telos Alliance, for Broadcasters General Supply, and for Angry Audio. Everything in this studio came from those folks, and I am so delighted with the studio, the audio over IP, the live wire. I mean, it is phenomenal, and I have not a single complaint on this, my third studio, and according to my wife, the last studio I will ever make. But it's a great studio. I absolutely love it in here.
Well, the good news is we've got pictures of the studio construction, and this may be the world's smallest Axia-equipped studio. You think?
Hey, I'm excited if that's the case. I want to somehow get that in the record books and get that noted because it is tiny. I do have the door behind me open. I don't have the door closed. I'm not worried about getting locked in here this time, but it's a little warm in here when it's 91 degrees out and I'm on the south side or the south side of the complex here, so it's beating down on the side here.
You, just to kind of set the stage, you live in kind of a resort area, don't you?
I do. If you're familiar with the TV show Ozark, I live at the Lake of the Ozarks. Now, the show was not filmed here because at the time, Missouri did not offer tax credits to production companies, so they didn't shoot much of the show here, although they would come in every season at least once and spend a couple of weeks filming flyovers and filming scenes like the state capitol or scenes around town like the Bagnell Dam Strip. So there are parts of the show that are on it. Actually, the Lake of the Ozarks are on the show, including my home. They did at least a half a dozen different flyovers, and I know of 6 different episodes where our home is featured on the show.
That's kind of cool watching TV and say, hey, there's my house right there. That's got to be,
in fact,
kind of interesting.
We stopped an episode one time because so many people were asking. We stopped it. We backed it up, and my wife stood in front of the TV, and I took a picture of her pointing at our home, going right there. That is where we live. So quit asking.
That's funny. Back when they had the TV show Nashville on ABC network, they shot, most of the places I didn't immediately recognize, but a few of them I did. And there are occasional articles about, here's the address of that house and here's the address of that house. And one of the houses, my wife at the time was looking through the sale papers at what homes were for sale. And she said, "Oh, look at that. That's the modern house that's on Nashville. That's where the girl moved to, and the football player, and that's that real swanky modern looking house." And I looked at the address. I said, "That's 4 blocks down the road. We can go look at that." So we did, and it was yeah. What?
No, I was going to say, when we get done with the show today, I will send you a home that's for sale. If you're looking, it is just a few blocks down from where I live. It's only $12 million. It's 8,000 square feet, 7 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms, infinity pool, sits right on the point of the lake. You got a great view of the channel. And it's, like I say, it's only $12 million. If that's too much for you, the one just down the street from it is priced so much better at $8 million.
Gosh. The Nashville home prices have just gone berserk, and Kid Rock's home has been in the news because it's like a mini version of a house. And I saw an aerial picture of it, and I looked at the aerial area. I went, wait a minute. I know those towers. I have flown my drone around those towers. Those are the TV towers on the northwest side of Nashville on I-24. One of them's owned by Ridgeland and Tower Company. And so I know exactly where that is. And then I've always heard that the singer, Steve Winwood, that he lives in my neighborhood. Turns out he does. It's literally 2 blocks down the street. I mean, and then up the street in a home that's probably in the $4 or $5 million range. It may be more. I'm sorry, Steve, if I'm insulting you, but looks to be about that. And then, oh gosh, there's another. I mean, they're everywhere. You can't hardly fling a cat without hitting some country music or rock artists home. Anyway, hey, Mark, we're going to continue with our show in just a minute. Our show is brought to you in part by our friends at Nutel. And Nutel has this really cool deal going. It's the HD Digital Radio Test Drive from Nutel. It's an offering intended to break down these barriers that keep many broadcasters from at least trying HD radio, getting their foot, and not just their foot wet, but jumping right in with it. HD radio transmission has the potential really now more than ever because of so many HD radios in cars these days. It has the potential to create critical presence in the car, on the dashboard, and help stations stay competitive with all those alternative media choices. It's based on Nutel's software-based AirChain technology. The digital radio test drive allows broadcasters to try HD radio transmission in your market for up to 6 months to unlock listeners and content and new revenue potential without needing to install and purchase $40,000 or $50,000 worth of the HD gear. Here's why. An easy, minimal cost option to turn on HD radio transmission. It lets you, again, test new revenue generating opportunities with your sales teams. You can obviously put new formats on there. You can try new formats. You can have temporary formats that are seasonal, maybe for upcoming football season or basketball season. You can turn on these extra channels. You can experiment with even new languages. You can see the impact on listener retention and engagement when album art or graphics are displayed on the auto dashboard. And you can counter against competing alternative media, the satellite services and maybe some streaming things. Get real-world market data based on up to 6 months of trial time. And to get started, you need to lease or purchase a Nutel GV2 transmitter, or if you have a GV transmitter, you can upgrade that transmitter to a GV2. Check with your Nutel rep about that. You'll need an Xperi main station or equivalent license and a signed trial agreement with Nutel, and you need some content from 1 to 4 channels deliver via Livewire or AES67. And of course, your Axia dealer can certainly help you get the right pieces in place to make that happen. So check it out from Nutel, amongst all the other Nutel offerings, like the cool analog VX series of transmitters that they have and all the other good stuff that Nutel offers. Thanks a lot, Nutel. Appreciate very much you sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. Find out who your favorite Nutel rep is. Maybe it's Jeff Welton. That's my rep, and probably Mark's as well for the middle part of the U.S. All right. This Week in Radio Tech is continuing here. Marc Haycook is our guest. Mark, if you don't mind, give us the elevator speech on who you are, and you've done a couple of interesting jobs in media, and you got started in radio really early, almost in handcuffs, right?
Yes, like a lot of us, I started very early. I was 12 years old. I was bored in school, and I built a pirate radio station. Got myself into a little bit of trouble. Got grounded for the summer, and the next thing you know, the commercial station. This is in Mansfield, Ohio. WMAN in Mansfield was picking me up to do weekends, and then I rose up into the news department, and it just went from there. I was working in Columbus, Ohio, while I was still in high school, about 60 miles away, driving down doing overnights in Columbus while I was going to school during the day. Went from Columbus to various parts of the Midwest, wound up in Davenport, Iowa at a station in the Quad Cities, and became the program director at 19, and kind of got burned out at a young age. Didn't know what I wanted to do, and stumbled around for a few years. Became a police officer for the next 24 years, keeping my foot in radio at the same time, because law enforcement was a great, stable career, but it didn't pay much money. Radio, on the other hand, still provided a source of income, but wasn't as stable. And you know, it was fun bouncing between radio and law enforcement. And then for a while, because I had the background in media, being the public information officer for a town just outside of Jefferson City for 6 years, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah, but that's how I wound up where I'm at today, though, by doing all those different crazy things.
And now, are you doing a lot of voiceover work? Is that right?
I am. The studio is set up as we'll get to with some pictures here in a little bit. I've got my my wonderful RE20 that I use for my daily radio show, but I've also got a Neumann that I've got set up in a different part of the small studio for strictly doing voiceover work. And I'm always trying to pick up more voiceover work out there. So if somebody's watching and they need a voice for some audio, hey, feel free to reach out to me. I really want to land an animation. I like doing character voices, and I'm working with somebody, and I'd really like to land an animation job at some point in the future.
I won't belabor it or go into it deeply, but sometime I really want to do. And if I get the right guest, if I can find the right guest to work with me, when I was a kid, I did character voices when I was a teenager, and my purpose in doing them was not to be in cartoons. I had a speech impediment. I stuttered horribly. I couldn't say my freaking name or my address or my phone number. And if I did a character voice, I almost didn't stutter. And so for years, privately, I didn't do it so much. I did it privately to persuade my brain that I could talk without stuttering. Now, that's probably not why you do character voices. What's your favorite part about that? What intrigues you about being a character?
It's the same thing with being on the radio. It allows you to be somebody else, especially when I was doing the law enforcement. I've got to be the police officer, the very formal police officer. Especially, we talked about this before the show when I was a public information officer. I had to be so careful when I went out in public because everybody was looking at me. But being on the radio gives me a little bit of anonymity, especially by using a different name. And I get to have fun. I get to be creative. And the same thing with being a character voice. I get to be all those things that I can't be as a person. At least maybe I shouldn't be as a person.
For about 20 years, I did part-time TV weather. And, I'd be out in public with my then wife. And there were times when I wanted to misbehave a little bit. I was upset with somebody about something. And she would always remind me, people know who you are, and don't do that. You need to behave really nice. Just, don't honk at people in traffic. Just let them go, be nice to people, even if they're not nice to you, because it could come back to bite you.
I got to admit, the one thing I liked was having what we call a slick top, having my unmarked car, especially if I was in town and somebody did something really stupid in front of me, turning on those red and blue lights and getting able to pull them over was fantastic.
There's plenty of times I've wanted to do that, my golly.
Because they just thought they were cutting off some F-150 pickup truck. They didn't realize it was a police officer behind them. So there were a few times I got to do that. The chief didn't like me doing that because it was an unmarked unit and I wasn't in uniform. So I had to be very selective of that.
Yeah,
but, I did that a couple of times. One time wound up with a great arrest. That's a whole nother story. But it was fun having that slick top. So if somebody did something stupid in front of me, I'll see you
I
in
know what you mean. 'Cause, earlier this week, I was driving about 10 miles south of here, and a minivan in front of me was stopped at a light, and their side windows opened up, and bags of fast food crap just came out of the car on both sides. Litter in a built up area, and the car had no license plate. It had a car dealer, an out of state car dealer's name on it, but they had no registered license plate. That's just and I thought, well, when I got to my destination, just a couple of minutes away, I did call the non-emergency number. I said, look, this is probably not something you're going to pursue, but here's a description of the car. Here's what the license plate said on it. It's a car dealer in Alabama. I looked it up, and here's what this person did. I know you got better things to do, but I just wanted to get it off my chest and report this to you, because I know that if a police officer had been sitting where I was sitting, would have stopped him.
Yep.
I mean, if a police officer saw it, a police officer would have pulled him over and said, it's a good time to check you out, buddy.
Yeah. And why don't you go back and pick up that stuff? And, why sit here and write you this little piece of paper? Why don't you go back and pick up all that stuff and put it back in your car?
Yeah. So anyway, hey, we're not here to talk about that. Let's talk about, in our limited time, let's talk about the studio. And I say studio, and you can't call it a studio. You live in a place that has a couple of restrictions, and adding a room to your house ain't something you can just do. So tell me about what has to come out of your mouth when you talk about your studio.
So legally speaking, for my homeowners association, I have a piece of furniture that happens to have a full-size door on it that I can walk into and sit down. But it's a box. It's a small box. It is completely isolated in the room. So sound is not an issue most of the time. The door is a solid hardwood acoustic door. It's 2 layers of drywall on the inside, 2 layers of drywall on the outside. The only thing I didn't do with this studio, just because of space, was do offset studs. Otherwise, this studio is as quiet as anything you walk into in any modern broadcast facility. But for me, it's a piece of furniture, and it's what I refer to as my box. I'll tell the wife sometimes, hey, I'm heading into the box for a little bit and go do my thing.
I'm thinking that the photo album I'm looking at is probably in the same order as what Suncast, our producer, is looking at. And Suncast, if you could start with the 4th picture, the one that shows a floor, just the beginning of this room, that would be awesome. We'll get to the first 3 pictures later. Or we could get, there we go. Okay. We're going to buzz through some of these early pictures here. And Mark, tell us what we're looking at. This is a piece of furniture. So.
Yes, this is a piece of furniture. This is how it all started out. That is the floor that floats. And if they are able to jump to the next picture, we're going to see this is actually the top, what I have my flooring on. But this is the bottom. This is the bottom turned upside down. And those are carpet squares. And I did that so I'd be able to slide the box around on the hardwood floor. Now, once it's been built, it's quite heavy and it takes a couple of people to move around. But if we go back to the first picture, it's turned back upside down, and that's where, there we go. That's what I actually am sitting on right now, is that side right there.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, let's go on a couple pictures up the way here. We'll see the beginnings of it. When I think, you got some framing going in here, or the sill.
Yes, and to save weight this time, again, I didn't do the offset studs, and I did aluminum metal studs, and it worked out so much better. I think one of the pictures you took for the show here today shows my level. I'm so OCD that I suffer from CDO, which is a little bit different from OCD. It's the correct order of the letters.
Yeah, actually, I may have bumped that. I may not have included that picture. I'm sorry, but trust me, there was a picture of a square and a level in all the pictures that Mark provided to me, and he provided me so many pictures, but I couldn't. I knew we wouldn't have time for all of them. So let's move on. Okay, what's going on here?
Oh, there's the level. Yeah, just showing.
Oh, it is.
Yep.
Awesome.
And just
Okay.
showing me framing it up, I had to use some temporary cross braces to keep it nice and square because after I got each wall squared up, I put a temporary brace up because the metal studs are very flimsy until you get the sheetrock on.
Yeah.
But I continued it. If you want to jump ahead here, some more slides, I just built it up slowly, and there shows the inside. 2 layers of sheetrock, so that gives that, and they're offset. So that really gives that sound, that dead sound to the studio. In fact, when we get into some of the other pictures, we will see that I've got a hardwood floor, a laminate hardwood floor in here, because when I was working with the audio engineer to get the acoustics right in here, it was almost too dead. It was almost too quiet. We needed to liven up the room some by giving it a hardwood floor, and they're just
What
showing
caulk?
some.
Yeah. What caulk did you use there between
Yeah,
this is
that's
between
something
the
called
drywall?
green glue. Green
Green
glue, and
glue.
I
Okay.
don't know.
All right.
There's somebody watching right now that's probably falling out of their chair, going, "Why did he waste his money on that?" Because there are just as many people that will tell you it's a waste of money as there are people telling you, "Yeah, that actually does help with the sound insulation." It's just
Hmm.
another little layer there that helps absorb that sound, so it doesn't transfer from the outside into the studio.
Okay. What's next here?
And
Oh.
we of course got the Rockwool insulation in there as well, and it just is as best I could make this. I did. In fact, living at the lake here, we are within a few hours drive in many directions of several Air Force bases and several military Army bases that
Mhm.
we have A-10s fly over on I don't want to say a daily basis, but at least a weekly basis. And I can be in the
Mhm.
studio and totally miss the A-10s flying over. I do not hear them.
And you called that insulation rock what?
That's Rockwool. That's Rockwool insulation. It's a
Okay.
special type of insulation. It's not designed for warmth or heating purposes. It's
Yeah.
designed for sound insulation. In fact, a
Okay.
lot of
Okay.
builders now are using Rockwool in homes as they build master bedrooms because it offers such a
Oh,
great sound insulating factor that they will use that, especially if you have a bedroom next to, say, an entertaining area, living
yeah.
room. They will put that
Yeah.
in there in the walls.
Okay. Cool. What's next here?
And don't look at the purple there on the bottom. I spilled some of the glue putting the conduit together. But again, to keep the noise down, everything that goes into that room is in conduit. So what you're seeing
Mm.
there, the small one is the electrical, and then the bigger one above that is how I bring my network into this room, and how I also bring in the computers, because my computers sit outside of my studio. One, because I didn't want the heat in there. And even though computers have gotten a lot quieter with the fans, I didn't want any fan noise in the studio. So I'm running HDMI cables and network cables through that bigger conduit there at the top.
Cool. Okay. Let's take a look at one more picture. Another one.
Yep,
All
just
right.
same thing there. Um, go on here.
All right. What's next? Oh yeah. So
Yeah,
you've
just
got
the
rock wool.
backside.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, they got the Rockwool, between the conduit there up against the drywall, and we can just keep going on these because they're just showing the same thing. And there, the square is actually, you'll see that in a little bit later. The square is actually where the cables do come into the studio, and I use that little box there to help bring them in from the conduit because I might have exceeded the Bixby standards for the amount of cables that I put into that conduit to get them into the studio here. Because no matter how much you plan and how much you go, oh, I've got enough room, when you start pulling the cables, you go, oh, wait, I need one more cable for this. And, it'd be nice if I had this. And the next thing you know, you've got your 1.5 inch conduit completely full.
Okay. Let's hit another one here.
And this does have a
Ah,
separate,
okay.
it is truly a box. There is a separate ceiling that's separate from the room ceiling here. It has a
Mhm.
top, it has 2 layers of drywall, sheetrock on the top of it, and it has 2 layers inside as well. So again, 4 layers of sheetrock. And by the way, I have to thank my wife. She carried this drywall up to the 4th floor with me.
Ooh.
4 by 8 sheets
Ooh.
of drywall. And she'll probably text me here because I'll probably get this wrong. I think we carried up 40 sheets of drywall.
Wow. Wow. My
And
goodness.
she's just 5'2".
Mm-hmm.
So she's just
5
a
foot.
little girl, and she definitely, this would not have been possible without her.
And so this, as you mentioned that, and somewhere we got a picture of the little bit of space between the top of the box and the ceiling in that room, but there is some space there with 2 or 3 inches maybe at the most.
Yeah.
Of space.
For the
Yeah.
ceiling, especially, the ceiling is only a couple of inches. The walls, there's about a quarter inch. I just didn't want anything touching the physical room other than the
Yeah.
floor, because I couldn't
Yeah.
float it. I tried to do as best I could with the foam and the carpet squares, but yeah, it's really soundproof in here. I'm very happy with the sound.
And we should point out, if we haven't already, you're in that room right now. So it's finished. It's
I
done.
am.
You've been
Yes.
producing all kinds of things from there, and you join us from this room, which is not very big. Do you ever get claustrophobic in there?
I don't, other than the time I got locked in here, and I don't know if you need to take a break yet.
That's a great stay tuned, because
All right.
Mark got locked in his own studio, and can you imagine being locked inside a little? Was it about 5 feet by 7 foot room?
I want to say that. Yeah, I'll have to look here real quick, but it's not much bigger than that if it is.
Okay. Marc Haycook is our guest. His company is called DMark Media. And Mark has done all kinds of things in the broadcasting realm, mostly behind the mic. But we got some pictures coming up of some of Mark's handiwork. And you're going to be impressed. You're going to be really impressed by how neat he is. He already admitted to being very OCD. And you can tell by how neat his wiring is and how much it makes total sense. This week in Radio Tech, I'm Kirk Harnack. Delighted that you are with us. We're talking, as I said, with Marc Haycook today. He's in the broadcasting business, does voiceover work for radio stations, but he also does voiceover, for professional applications, commercial, movies, books, that kind of thing too. This week in Radio Tech is brought to you in part by Angry Audio and this amazing new Rave console. We've been talking about it for almost a year, and it's shipping now. It really is. I know they had to get all the stuff in a row, all the parts in a row, all the supply chain in a row. This is the Rave radio mixer. Now, it's called a radio mixer, but it's great for podcast studios as well. This is an analog mixer with 8 stereo inputs, 4 mic inputs. I know that because it says that on the screen. It's got 2 stereo mix buses in it and 2 mix minus outputs with talkback, plus a monitor section, flexible and powerful for that, and an output for studio guests and talkback, plus beautiful metering and tallies, off-air preview on every single input, and premium long-life components. It's got nice design margins as well, and broadcast-grade construction. How do you like me reading these? This is so easy. Silky smooth faders. I've tried them. Avionics-style switches, and LED illumination so the bulbs do not burn out. Low noise mic preamps. They have phantom power available. You can switch that on. And remote control logic is there as well. So you need to push a button and start something else, you can. Studio hub connectors to make the wiring easy peasy, and an internal power supply. It's really gorgeous. This thing it's heavy. This is no lightweight. This feels good on your desktop. So if you want a console it's right in the $2,000 range, you check with your dealer, see if you can get any discount off of that. It's easy to plug in, easy to wire. Of course, it has XLR connectors for the mic inputs, but it has the RJ45 Studio Hub Plus connections for everything else, for audio ins and outs. Now, this is an analog console. It's not AES EBU. It is not LiveWire or AES 67. This is an analog mixing console that is perfect for a lot of applications. Check it out at angryaudio.com. You can see that same little video that we just watched. This Week in Radio Tech is also brought to you by our friends at Max Connect. Now, we've been talking about Max Connect Wireless for a long time, and that's worth talking about. If you want me to remind you, Max Connect Wireless offers you 4G LTE access points to get internet data from a local cell carrier. And these things are powerful. They're powerful not because they're a good box with a good radio, but they are also powerful because of what Max Connect has done for us in the broadcast industry. They've made arrangements with each of the major cell carriers to get a slice of spectrum, which includes a slice of data that's reserved. Now, this is not the first responder data. This is a step below that, but a big step above what the average Joe gets on the street or at the stadium or at the parade or at the car dealer. Max Connect gives you prioritized data and a static IP address. And those two things right there make it really worthwhile for you doing radio stuff like remote broadcasts, like remote controlling transmitter sites. We've used it. I've personally used it at a couple of transmitter sites where we either lost our internet connection or we didn't have it there yet, and we were supposed to. And we have gotten people back on the air easily using Max Connect wireless services. And we had a station in Memphis, Tennessee with that was on an IPSTL, and the big local carrier cable company failed for 4 days. They were gone, no data at all for 4 days. They had a big problem, and Max Connect saved the day. I drove the box down there, we hooked it up, and we were on the air in minutes. With service restored thanks to Max Connect Wireless. It stayed on the air for 4 days until the cable company got their act back together. And at my own transmitter site, we had a site, we needed internet, and the fiber guys had just not shown up yet. They were 6 weeks late. And we used Max Connect to get ourselves on the air and going and get all our stuff loaded on the automation systems. Cool as can be. Check it out, Max Connect. MaxConnect.com is the website. All right, Kirk Harnack here, along with Marc Haycook. Mark is in the what I want to say Osage Beach, but you had a different name for your town, didn't you?
No, well, Lake of the Ozarks is the region.
Lake of the
I actually
Ozarks.
am in Osage. Yeah, I'm in Osage Beach, and it's literally the heart of it. I'm at the 21-mile marker, the main channel, and it's just thousands and thousands of people. And real quick on Max Connect, they do a fabulous job here at the lake in a tourist area, because you can imagine when the networks were designed here, they were designed for the 4,000 or 5,000 people that live in each town around the lake. Well, during the summer months, especially on the weekends and the holidays, this area becomes the third largest metro in the state of Missouri, right behind St. Louis and Kansas City. There's that many people that come here. And if you're trying to do a broadcast on a regular cellular carrier, you're not going to do it. You're not going to have the bandwidth to do it.
Yeah.
And Max Connect is great for that because they guarantee you that bandwidth. So just a little testimonial there for your sponsor.
Wow, that's awesome. Good to hear. I mean, good to hear there's a solution out there for us broadcasters. So let's, I meant to ask you before we get to the story about locking the door, about what did that box cost you to build that piece of furniture?
Because of my CDO, my OCD, I had to do things a couple of times. So I did waste a little bit of money. Overall, under $10,000 for the entire studio. And $4,000 of that is the door that we'll talk about in a minute. That door was $4,000.
Oh my gosh! All right, well let's get right into it. That $4,000 door. This is a pre-hung door, and people in broadcasting. I mean, none of my radio stations have these expensive doors they seal nicely. They're pretty soundproof, very sound deadening. But I've been to plenty of stations that had them. I mean, some people just wouldn't build a station without having that kind of door. I've never had that luxury. Obviously, you were aware of this kind of door. Tell me how you did you make accommodation when you built the box, the room? What did you have to do to have it able to handle such a heavy door that I'm sure when it closes it gives a, you don't want the drywall falling off when you close the door.
No. There's a couple of really good stories here. The first story is the reason this is now my third studio. The first studio I built back in the early 2000s when I worked for what was then Clear Channel. I was one of the first people in the country to voice track for them from a home studio. You know, they'd started doing a lot of voice tracking, but they didn't have people doing it from home. And because my IT background, I was one of the first ones that got set up doing that from home when I was working for KLOU in St. Louis. I got rid of that studio when I moved to the Lake of the Ozarks, and the studio I've got now was simply a chance meeting with one of the group owners. He owns about 10 stations here in Missouri. I happened to bump into him at either Best Buy or Home Depot, one of the chain stores, I was out buying some stuff for a remodeling project, bumped into him, and he's like, "Hey, I'd really love for you to do afternoons for me. Do you still have that studio?" And this is right as COVID was starting, and he needed remote people. And I didn't have that studio anymore, so I built this new studio. And the second studio I ever built, the first version of the studio, was actually built in my loft area and was built out of 2x4s. And I got it about 3/4 of the way done. Didn't even have the door upstairs yet, and we started seeing deflections in the floor because it was too heavy for the loft. So I actually had to tear down that studio, throw it out, and start over again in one of our guest bedrooms on the main floor.
Oh, wow. Wow. All right.
So that's where some of that that's where some of that money went. And again,
Suncast is standing by
very
with
understanding.
yeah. And then
Very
and that was
understanding
before the door. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Suncast has a door picture he's going to start out with here. This is an edge shot of the door showing the hinge arrangement. So maybe you can take it from
And
there.
that shows how thick it is there. I mean, those are 4 hinges, and those are hydraulic sealed hinges. When we get to the story about me being locked in here, that will become even more of an issue. But we can go to the next picture there. You can see that door is about 3 inches thick. You can see in that picture there on what would be on the left-hand side on the screen, I guess the right-hand side over by the TWiRT logo, there are actually 3 catches and 1 lock catch. So when you close that door, it catches at the bottom, it catches in the middle like a normal door, and there's a catch up on top to pull that door in up against that seal. And then something really cool that I'm sure you've seen in other broadcast doors, when that door actually closes and when the hinges meet, there's a little channel that drops out of the bottom of that door to seal the gap at the bottom of the door up against the hardwood floor. So there is I mean, I can turn the AC up in here full blast, and it will actually push out through the conduit. You will not hear anything. You will not feel anything come out from around the door seals because it is that tight. And you can see there, and while you were doing your commercial break there, I measured inside the studio here, and inside I am 5 foot by 7 foot. That is so 35 square feet inside the studio. So it is small. And if we want to jump forward here, I think we might have one more door picture. Oh, no, that's actually a ceiling picture. So this was actually something I didn't plan, but I'm so happy with. I did, and we'll see these in other pictures here coming forward. I did clouds. I did sound clouds that hang from the ceiling to, again, help with the acoustics, help with the reverberation. And what it allowed me to do was bounce the can lights off the top of that sound cloud, so I have no direct lighting inside the studio, and you'll see that in one of the other pictures where
okay, so this is inside the box. We're looking at the top of the sound cloud and the bottom of the ceiling. And you're looking at the space between the sound cloud and the ceiling. Okay, and that's why the hooks are there. Holding the sound cloud up.
Those sound clouds are being held up by those hooks there that go up into the ceiling.
Perfect. All right, next.
And there we go.
There's the clouds up there,
there are the clouds, and you get to see that great reflection of the light. So there's no direct lighting. I love the mood lighting in here. It's a very calming room too, because there is no direct light. It's very easy to do my recordings, and I'm also I'm actually on the radio every day. I do afternoons on a radio station here at the lake. It's a very relaxing room to be in, and you see the corner bass traps there. I mean, again, the room was so dead sounding that we had to put in a hard floor to get a little bit of reflection in the room. And you can see in the corner there too, down by the floor, where I'd cut a hole into the box there and put a rubber grommet on to pass the cables in that we'll see in some other slides.
Okay.
Here's
the about floor. Finished. Yeah.
Yep, there's the floor, and I've got and that is actually an air purifier in there, and I've still got that in there. So when I'm not on the air, that air purifier is running. And of course, maybe getting older, there's my comfortable seat, my cooler.
Nice. Let me think of it. Okay. Oh, here's the. All right.
Yep. There's some more of my OCD-ness. Those are, so the blue cables actually run up to my data closet up on the second floor here in our unit, and go into a patch panel up there and then go into the switch. But the six up on top there are actually data. Those are running to my network. The six on the bottom I'm using for the audio over I'm sorry, actually, I'm using those as analog connections into the audio engine, the Radius audio engine. Those are what are the Angry Audio connections that they make to go from XLR into the 8-pin.
The studio hub. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. The eight pin connectors there. So, and of course, my background also in telecommunications, I've got my service loop in there so I can move things around if need be. I can actually, as we talked about, I can move the studio around on those carpet squares.
Right. You can push it around if you need to a little bit. Okay. All right. What's next? Now here it's equipped.
Video. Yep. And again, it's a walking endorsement for the Telos Alliance, for all the great sponsors you have. Everything in there except for, and I realized this when we see one of my old studio pictures. I think at the end, if we get a chance to get to that, the RE20 microphone that I'm actually using today. I realized I bought that microphone in 2003.
20 years old. Wow.
It's 20 years old and still sounds great and still looks great. And it's the only piece of hardware that didn't come from Broadcast General Supply. And there's the other corner of the studio where I actually have my Neumann microphone. It still wasn't wired up at that point. You can see the straight end coming out there, the cable. I had just purchased it and gotten it installed. And I like not having to make any changes to the microphone. That mic is completely raw. It goes straight into the console and then straight into my computer that I use to record. So the audio engineers, wherever I'm sending the audio to, they can sit there and they can tweak my voice however they want. I send them a completely raw, uncompressed, unchanged audio file.
And I'll point out that that console that you have, the Radius console from Axia, and it's got an external box, which is the core integrated engine that has a couple of mic preamps built into it, with or without phantom power. You can turn that on or off. And obviously the EV microphone that's shown right there, you don't need phantom power, but the Neumann, you do need phantom power for that. And then you've got mic processing available on every mic input on that console. It's built in the console, but you can also not use it. And I take it you're not using it for the Neumann and letting your customers do any processing that they want.
Yep. Yeah. The audio engineers I work with, I just send them the completely raw file and they tweak it how they make me sound good. I love working with some of the best guys out there because they can even make my voice sound good, and I love it. And I'm not sure.
Here we have.
I'm not sure. There we go. Yeah. I wasn't sure if we'd passed this picture. So yeah, I forgot it's called the core. You can see the core there. That's the one with the 4 lights.
Down the bottom left. Okay.
Yep. I've got that in there. So again, I want to keep the heat down in this small studio. So I have the very minimal amount of equipment in there. I've got, I don't even have my UPS in here. It sits outside. But I've got go ahead.
That furniture there looks like OmniRack's furniture.
Yes, it is. It is. Yep. And in fact, they had gone into the business studio or business furniture environment. And that's how I got reassociated with the great folks at OmniRacks when everybody started working from home. And before I had the studio completed, I bought a home desk for my home office from them. And then when I started building the studio, I'm like, well, I know who to get to do my my studio. I'm going to go to OmniRacks.
We have one more picture, and it's a blast from the past. Let's take a look.
There we go. Yeah, there's that RE20 that I'm still using today, but that is my old Auditronics board there, the old big CRT monitors, the ViewSonics. I think those were ViewSonic 20s, which at the time were just ginormous. And you can see off on the left side there, that's the old Next Gen. And again, that was tied into the Clear Channel data network. And I did several stations besides KLOU in St. Louis. I did several stations from that box, and it was fantastic. I love being able to do what I do. And make it sound like I'm live on the air. In one of the previous pictures we saw, I've even got a Telos VSET. and I've got the
Yep.
Telos unit to put callers on the air. So even though I'm not live from 2 to 6 in the afternoon on the station on the air here at the lake, I still will do contesting, and the studio will just forward their lines to me, and I'll take the sounder will play. I'll take the winner, I'll record them, edit it down, and I can still get it on the air, voice tracked, and sound like I'm live.
Let's talk about that console for 1 second, because you and I had a nice conversation about that during our pre-show prep. That's an Auditronics console made in Memphis, Tennessee, at their facility. It's no longer there, on Old Getwell Road. Very nondescript building, because the owners of the building did not want it to be the subject of theft and break-ins. So they didn't, they didn't advertise the word tronics or electronics anywhere on the building. But it was nondescript, but they sure built a lot of consoles there. I installed a few of those different stations.
Yeah, that console has a unique history to it. That's an Auditronics 210 there. It was one of the very first consoles I worked at when I got into the larger markets. I worked at WXGT 92X in Columbus, Ohio in 1986, and we had an Auditronics 210 that looked just like that. And then I picked this one up off of eBay back in the early 2000s. It came from a TV station where they'd kept really good care of it. And at the time, I was working for Clear Channel in St. Louis. I was actually doing my shows in St. Louis. I didn't have my home studio. And J.C. Hall, who is no longer with us, but he was a fantastic engineer in St. Louis. He spent most of his career just outside St. Louis in Belleville, Illinois. But at the time he was working for Clear Channel in St. Louis, I started talking to him about the board, and he's like, wow, I used to work for Auditronics. I'd love to help you put that studio together. Do you mind if I come over? And I'm like, if somebody's offering to help me, especially with those, is it Molex connection? Molex connection?
Molex,
you know what I'm talking about?
Molex connections, yeah.
Molex connections. Yeah, he had the tool to do all those. So I'm like, sure, come on over. He gets a look at that console, and he looks at it. He goes, hang on a second. And he had the notes with him. He built that console.
That very console.
From the serial number. Yes. So you know how some of those old school engineers are? They keep every note that they've ever written in their entire life.
Oh, wow.
And he had the notes from when he worked at Auditronics. He brought them with him along with some schematics, but he had the notes on that console when he built it. And what gets even crazier, that console, its first life was at Great Charles Broadcasting, who owned 92X, the radio station I worked at in Columbus, Ohio. That console actually wound up in their Dayton, Ohio studios, not in Columbus, Ohio. But I've had a history with that console several times, and it was a lot of fun putting that together with JC.
Can't get rid of it. It keeps coming back.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
It does.
Hey, we're going to take a quick commercial break. And by the way, speaking of Auditronics, I'm friends with him on Facebook. Maybe he watches the show. Shout out to Duncan Fuller, who worked at Auditronics for many, many years. One of their design and production engineers. Great guy, super smart. And I got to do some work with Duncan as a contractor, because I lived in Memphis. So I did a little bit of contract work for them. So anyway, great to have Auditronics. They were a wonderful, wonderful company and built some great consoles. Hey, we're talking to Marc Haycook. He is a voiceover guy with some beautiful studio chops and little engineering chops too. We're going to take a couple more pictures coming up after the break of some of Marc's work. And I think as engineers, we all can learn from that. And something that crossed my mind, I know there are voiceover artists elsewhere across the country who are going to show this episode to their favorite engineering buddy and say, hey, I want that. Can you build me that in my home? So I'm sure that this is going to be an exemplar episode of This Week in Radio Tech. Glad to have Marc along to help us with that. I'm Kirk Harnack. Our show is brought to you in part by Broadcasters General Store and the really cool stuff that comes from Broadcast Tools. Let's take a look, if we might, at this product from Broadcast Tools, the IO Sentinel 4 G2. That's kind of a mouthful. What is the IO Sentinel 4 G2? Well, it's a web-based GPIO interface. Now, it's not exactly a full remote control like we're used to for transmitter sites, but it may very well fit the bill for what you need to do at your facility. You need to access it remotely. It's a robust full-featured Ethernet-based data acquisition and remote control device. It has 4 optically isolated status inputs, and it has 4 programmable relays. The IO Sentinel 4G2's 4 optically isolated status and logic inputs, those can be configured for wet or dry contact closure status or logic monitoring. The 4 1-amp relay outputs can be configured for on or off or pulsed or reboot operation. So there's lots of different modes you can make this thing do depending on what you need. It can be controlled and monitored locally or remotely by any IP network, including private networks and IP-based industrial control networks, and of course the public internet. You can operate it using a web browser or a web-enabled mobile device. I mean, you can bring it up on your cell phone and use it there. If you need to reboot something or hit an up or a down relay or find out the status of something. You can also set up email notification that can alert up to 8 email or SMS type email addresses. And logging of system status along with the site ID can be emailed in time spans from once an hour to once a day. So lots of flexibility there in how you get notified about what's going on. Also, there are SNMP traps and set-get to allow multiple units to be monitored and controlled with SNMP management software. Chris Tarr loves that. The IO Sentinel 4G2 can be paired with a second one to form an IP-based 4-channel bidirectional status relay extension cord. Hey, you can put these back to back, 1,000 miles apart if you want to, right? Over the public internet, have them talk to each other. So you can give a contact closure at one end, have it come out the other end. Isn't that cool? There are times that can be very, very helpful. And I got to tell you, this is one of many, many, many things that broadcast tools makes. And what that implies is you need to do something at your transmitter site, your studio, remote control a couple things. Get your browser over to broadcasttools.com and check out the enormous array of products that they make, including this one, all kinds of silent sensors and distribution amps and AB selections, silent sense to go to a backup input, all that kind of stuff. And when you pick out the things that you want, the things that you need, go to Broadcasters General Store to get your best price. It's bgs.cc. bgs.cc. Family owned and operated since 1979. You know how I know that? Says that right there on the website. And I was just talking to Hugh from BGS last week. What a great outfit. Just awesome people. And I think Marc Haycook would tell you too. That's where you need to buy your stuff, because that's where he's bought all his stuff. They have sharp pencils at BGS and smiling faces, good personalities, and you're just going to love them if you haven't tried them already. The website, bgs.cc. They're set up to take your phone calls at 352-622-7700. Thank you so much. Broadcast Tools, Don Wingett, and Broadcasters General Store. All right, Mark, we got a few minutes here before our last break. And Mark, I'm as always, I forgot to tell you until right now, at the end of the show, after our last break, we do a tip of the week. So, save your best advice for the end of the show, because I'm going to ask you for it. Mark, we got, I think we got 3 more pictures to look at that are going to show off some of your OCD handiwork. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, that's actually my network up on my second floor here in where we live, and that's a couple of Dell servers and my data rack. That Meraki network there, Meraki firewall, and I've got, because I'm doing so many things that I require a good internet. I've got my cable internet, and I also have a cellular backup as well. Should the cable go down, I don't have to worry about that. So right now, if we lose connection, you wouldn't even know it. The picture might look a little fuzzy for a couple of seconds, but then it would be great. And I've also got my Mitel phone system there as well, and that's how I bring the SIP trunks from my carrier into the studio.
All right, before we go to the next picture, I have questions. You mentioned a couple of Dell servers. I see. Are those hanging vertically on the wall?
Yes, because
Yeah.
I'm limited on space, I couldn't fit a four-post rack in there, and I came up with
Yeah.
this idea when I worked at the phone company a long time ago for mounting equipment in tight spaces. I just used a couple of, I think that's a 3U rack there, and I put one turned up for the front of the servers and one turned down for the back of the server rack rails, and they slide in just perfectly. Now, I'm not going to get them in and out once I've got the other rack mounted up there on the wall. So I'm pretty much taking things apart if I need to get in there. But
Yeah.
that was just
Yeah.
that was just a temporary solution. But yeah, that's definitely an option for somebody if they're really tight on space.
Now, in the rack that's mounted to the wall, the kind of normal kind of equipment rack you have bolted to the
Yep.
wall, is that on hinges or is it just fully bolted to the wall?
That one's on hinges. Yeah, the
Oh,
side
okay.
actually opens up on that.
Okay. And now you mentioned Meraki, and I've certainly heard that name. I knew of them, I want to say, before Cisco bought them. What to you, and we're not here to promote a particular brand, but there must be a reason why you chose some Meraki equipment there. What does that do for you? What's the benefit there?
Well, for me, at the time, I was working for a managed service provider, and they were
Mhm.
on Meraki, so I was able to buy direct from Cisco,
Okay.
very, very cost effectively. So that's the primary reason. The other reason is Meraki is just so easy to use. I work with a couple of broadcasters in Missouri, and I help them with their IT, and I put all of them on Meraki gear because it's all cloud-based management. So if they have a
Hmm.
switch that goes bad, or if they have a firewall that goes bad, I don't have to have something shipped to me, configure it, send it to them, and try and explain to them how to get it online. I just Meraki sends them an overnight piece of replacement, and they plug it in, and boom, they're back online. Just that easy. So if
That
you're
sounds really
managing
interesting.
multiple
Okay.
locations, yeah, if you're managing multiple locations, I cannot say enough good things about Meraki.
That's really that's intriguing. Okay, okay. Um, wow, I need to look into that more for myself. Okay, good to know.
Yeah, for
And
your
then you said
stations in well, you for your stations in or is it American Samoa?
yeah,
Yeah,
they're a
that
fur
yeah,
piece away.
yeah, yeah. That would be so easy to manage that network and be able to make changes to that network through the Meraki dashboard.
Cool. Okay, interesting. And then you mentioned a phone system. I take it is that kind of an asterisk based SIP phone system you have there?
No, actually, it's Mitel, Mitel Business
Yeah,
System. I run a
yeah.
separate Windows server for that, and
Oh, okay.
it's all proprietary Mitel. They might be running a
That's
flavor
right.
of Asterisk in there, but it's actually a Linux based box. I take it back; they aren't
Mhm.
running anything Asterisk. It's all Linux based for their hardware.
Okay. Interesting. Anything else about your IT setup that you'd like to pass along, unless it's a tip of the week that you want to
No,
hang on
no,
to?
it's just I'm very OCD. I just happen to think though, I'm looking at the time. We want to save time for the one story we haven't talked about. Me getting locked into this room.
Oh, oh, do you want to save that for as the tip of the week, or do you want to do it
We
right
can't.
now?
We can make it the tip of the week. And the tip of the week is
Okay,
not
okay,
to get
okay,
locked in a studio.
okay. Well, tell you what we're going to do. We're going to break format just a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and do, because I know this story is going to take a few minutes. This is an amazing story. You've got to stay tuned for this story. And isn't that a sweet way to get you to stay tuned through the next commercial? And so let's go ahead and hear from our sponsor, Broadcast Bionics, and their virtual rack. And I think Suncast, because I've surprised him here, he's going to show you a web page that's on the Bionics website, bionics.co.uk. And this is about the virtual rack. And they want you to know that broadcast hardware that isn't hard. I've been a big advocate of software-based broadcast infrastructure for some years now, because so many other industries are doing this. And in broadcasting, we're a few years behind, but we're catching up. Although I got to say, the job is a little bit harder, because in broadcast, we want to pass audio, at least in radio. And then, of course, TV broadcasters have video involved too. But in radio, we've got real time audio. So a lot of your software based functions in other businesses are transactional based. They're processing some data, and if something gets delayed by 5 milliseconds, who cares? It's not that big a deal. But in audio, it's a huge deal. in audio, it's got to work really right. And that's why people like my employer, Telos Alliance, or other companies like Sound 4 or 2WCOM have had to work really hard to make sure that their software offerings basically work in real time in the operating system environment, Linux, that they're operating in. And there's this standard that's been around for about a dozen years now called Docker. And this is software container technology. It's very efficient. And so many data centers are using this. Well, Docker containers can... There's a steep learning curve to learn how to install this. This isn't just like installing a piece of Windows software or something on a Mac or even something on a Linux box. Installing Docker containers, especially when you've got more than one network internally involved, can be complicated. And that's what Broadcast Bionics has solved for you and for me. They have this device that is called the virtual rack from Broadcast Bionics. And they have this dashboard. When you turn the thing on, you browse into it, you're presented with this dashboard. And it's like an app store. You pick out the broadcast functions that you want to install. And it is not child's play what goes on behind the scenes here. Broadcast Bionics has worked very, very hard to make sure that these Docker containers, these software containers, install properly and set up the correct networking inside the box so that you can connect it to your networks, because most of them are going to be more than one, outside the box. Okay. So you can, if you want an audio console in this virtual rack, you click on the Telos Alliance Axia Altus audio console. You want a phone system for your radio station, you click on the Telos Alliance Telos VXS phone system. You want you want some processing or some codecs from Sound 4 or from 2WCOM. You click on those, and the magic of the virtual rack, it installs them for you. Now they're not licensed yet. That's a separate thing. You still need to go buy the license for the respective things that you're doing. But most of these work on a demo basis anyway, to some degree. So you can try it out, make sure it's going to work for you, make sure your IP addresses are correct and all that, and then you can go license it from the respective manufacturer. This is so cool. And of course, they have ways for resiliency and redundancy. If you want to buy two of these, you certainly can. They will talk to each other. They'll keep tabs on each other. And if one of them fails, it'll just go right over to the other one. Broadcast Bionics has made this so simple and so easy. And listen, as a guy who works for Telos Alliance, I can tell you, this natively is not simple and easy. We have development guys and we have field application guys that install this software for customers. And Broadcast Bionics has made this easy. In fact, when our engineers at Telos Alliance saw this product from Broadcast Bionics and they got their hands on it, they went, oh my goodness, this is pretty cool. So check it out from Broadcast Bionics. You can get it from your favorite Broadcast Bionics dealer, no matter what country that you're in. Just check that out. Bionics.co.uk. All right, we're here with our final few minutes with Marc Haycook, and Marc's got a remarkable story. Kind of like locking himself in a bank vault. Marc, take it away, buddy.
Well, I tell you what, I wanted to make episode 700 memorable because of something we talked about during our pre-show discussion. You've never had a caller on This Week in Radio Tech, correct? You've never had a phone call.
Right. We've never taken phone calls. We've thought about it, and I'm just too lazy to get that set up, but maybe I should.
Well, Michelle, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, Kirk, are you able to hear her?
Yes, absolutely.
So I've added my wife onto the call.
Hi.
I'm going to turn her off because she's driving, but I'll bring her back here in a second because she can add to this.
Yeah.
Because so what happened? I had just gotten the studio built, just gotten the door installed. I wasn't even using the studio yet, and I wanted to go inside and see how quiet it was. Well, I closed the door.
Yeah.
And I closed the door.
You should be able to close the door, right? I mean, we all have radio studios. We close the door. When we're done, when we're ready to leave, we open the door.
Right. I couldn't get it open. You saw the door. It's thick. It's not going to get kicked open. They can't come in and take the hinges off. I was locked in the studio because the door mechanism had failed.
By the way, that a lot of people would think to pull the pins on the hinges, and you said earlier these hinges are different. You cannot take the hinges apart.
Correct. Those are sealed hinges. I could not take the pins off. So we'll go back to the phone here. Michelle, are you there?
I'm here.
So what did you have to do when I was banging on the door and you couldn't help me?
I had to call 911 and try and explain to them where you were.
My husband's in a box and he's locked in.
Yes. Yeah.
Right, correct.
Yeah. I mean, I could hear her, and she was getting frustrated because the dispatcher had no idea what she meant.
Of course, who would? Oh my
The
gosh.
good news.
So,
I'm stubborn and I have OCD. So I sat there and kept playing with the mechanism, and I finally felt it catch, and I was able to open the door. And I called the manufacturer, who I would still buy doors from them. This was a one-off. They've had it happen one other time. They said one other time they've had a door mechanism fail. They knew exactly what happened. They didn't even want the old one back. They're like, hey, you'll have a new one tomorrow morning. And they overnighted me, express overnight. I had it the next morning before 10 o'clock in the morning. But yeah, I was waiting for my friend from the fire department to come in with a chainsaw and start cutting apart that $4,000 door that I just put in there.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
And to this day, Michelle, will you go in the studio and let me close the door?
No, I will not.
So when you do voiceover, Michelle has to be out of the house, right? She doesn't know. She's like, la, 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 la.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I cannot get her to go in the studio. I put the grandkids in there. They're fine, but she will not go in the studio and let me close the door.
Oh my gosh. What, is she afraid that she might get stuck in there with you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, what a fate. That'd be terrible.
Well, there you go. You've had your first phone call on the air.
First phone call. Well, you know what? Gee, maybe I should check out one of these Telos things like you have and put callers on the air. You think I should do that?
I know somebody that might be able to help you.
I should do that. You know what? I've got a Telos VX right here at my office. I should absolutely wire that up. Now I got to get a console. I got a console. I could make this happen. I really could. But the console I have is 4 feet long, though. It won't fit on my desk. It's on the other desk. I'll figure out a way to get it done, Mark. You've inspired me. You and Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for calling in. You're not only is the first phone call, Michelle's the first caller. Mark, tell Michelle what she's won.
She's won an evening with me at home.
There you go. I should send you guys a Telos Alliance mug. I'll send you a nice insulated mug. Okay.
There you go. And she'll use it. She'll use it.
Listen, it's the only one. We have different insulated mugs here at our house. It's the only one that keeps stuff cold overnight on the nightstand. So when you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and you just got to get something in your, got to drink something, there it is. Of course, my wife, it's usually half full of tequila. But anyway. All right. Well, good. That's the story. The locked myself in my brand new studio story. That's incredible, Mark. All right, Mark, I want to thank you for being with us. I can see people wanting to emulate what you have built there in their own homes.
And honestly, it's so clean and when I say clean, the Axia network, the core, the Radius console, I mean it's just so clean. The audio is just amazing. I'm just so impressed with what you guys have been able to do with audio over IP.
That is awesome. Awesome. Hey, Mark, we're out of time. We've come to the end of our show. Don't hang up, Mark. We got to get a picture of you for the show. I want to thank you, Marc Haycook, for being on the show. We'll have contact information for Mark at DMark Media. Is it dmarkmedia.com? Is it that easy?
Yeah. Actually, I don't have much of a website up. In fact, I think after my last server failure, I might not actually have any website up, but it is. Yeah, it's dmarkmedia.com. Mark, M-A-R-C, at dmarkmedia.com. All
right. So people want to hire you for voiceover work. You charge a lot of money, but you're well worth
it. Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
Hey, I want to thank Mark for being on the show, and thanks so much to Suncast for producing this week's show, This Week in Radio Tech. And I'm frantically, I really should have this information in front of me. Next week we got for show 701, a really favorite guy favorite of the show is on, Tim Barry. Tim Berry is going to talk about planning for this fall's sports remote broadcasts. And Tim Berry knows about this because he's the sports remote guy for the University of Tennessee Vols Network. And that means there's a lot of pressure on Tim Berry because if there's a problem with the broadcast, oh my goodness, tens of thousands of people and millions of dollars are all at stake. So Tim Berry knows what he's talking about. So hope you'll join us next week for that. And we'll see if we can get Chris Tarr back on the show. We got to go. And thanks very much again to Suncast. We'll see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye.